A waitress was fired on Christmas Eve for giving food to homeless children. When the owner of the restaurant arrived and recognized one of the children, she broke down in tears. The bell above the door jingled, announcing the arrival of another smiling group of customers at the cozy corner. Emma, her grey hair pulled back into a messy bun, straightened her wrinkled apron and forced a tired smile. Her eyes, marked by deep lines, swept over the dining room filled with tables draped in white cloths and flickering candles. The aroma of roasted turkey and cinnamon hung in the air, mingling with the cheerful buzz of conversation and the clink of silverware. Pine wreaths and golden lights wound around the dark wooden walls, reflected in the bright eyes of the diners. Emma weaved between the tables, skillfully balancing a tray laden with champagne glasses. Her steps were swift, fruit of decades of practice, but her shoulders bore the invisible weight of unspoken worries. "More wine, sir?" she asked mechanically, leaning in to refill the glass of a chubby customer. The man nodded distractedly, never taking his eyes off his companion. As she straightened up, Emma's gaze was drawn to the large front window. Through the foggy glass, she glimpsed small, trembling silhouettes. She blinked, trying to focus better. Her heart tightened. They were children, 3 or 4, no more than that. Their thin faces pressed against the glass, wide eyes fixed on the abundance of food inside the restaurant. The youngest couldn't have been more than 6 years old, her tangled hair partially hiding hollow eyes and sunken cheeks. Emma felt a lump form in her throat. Her hands gripped the tray tightly, knuckles whitening. For a moment, she saw herself reflected in those hungry eyes, a memory of a distant past she struggled to forget. "Emma! Table 7 is waiting for their appetizers." The shrill voice of Madeleine, the stern-faced manager, cut through the air like a whip. Emma blinked, coming back to reality. She nodded quickly and headed to the kitchen, but not before casting one last look at the children in the window. They were still there, their pleading gazes following her. In the bustling kitchen, pots clanged and knives struck cutting boards in a frantic rhythm. Jack O'Connor, the red-bearded chef with an easy smile, barked orders as he juggled steaming pans. "Emma, dear, grab these canapes for table 7, will you?" Jack said, thrusting a plate toward her. Their eyes met for a moment and he frowned. "You all right?" Emma forced another smile. "Sure, just tired. It's a busy night." She took the plate, but her mind was elsewhere. The children at the window. Could she do something? A plate of leftovers, maybe? But Madeleine was strict about the rules. Giving away free food meant immediate termination. Emma needed this job. Bills didn't pay themselves, and her only family, her sick nephew, depended on her help. Returning to the dining area, Emma handed out the canapes, her professional smile masking the storm inside. Her eyes kept darting to the window. The children were still there, their gazes a mix of hope and resignation. At the bar, Madeleine surveyed the room with eagle eyes, her posture rigid and lips set in a thin line. Emma knew one misstep would be noticed immediately. The clock on the wall read 9:30 p.m. There were still hours to go before the end of her shift. Emma took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision she needed to make. Help the children and risk everything, or ignore them and live with the guilt. While serving another round of drinks, her eyes met those of one little girl at the window. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. In that gaze, Emma saw a younger version of herself, scared and starving. Her heart pounded harder. A resolve began to form in her mind. With trembling hands, Emma picked up another tray of champagne. As she passed through the kitchen, her fingers discreetly brushed a plate of freshly baked croissants. The doorbell jingled again. Emma looked at Madeleine, then at the children in the window, and finally at the back door. It was time to make a choice. The bell above the door jingled once more, announcing the arrival of yet another group of smiling customers at the cozy corner. Emma, her grey hair pulled back into a messy bun, adjusted her wrinkled apron and forced a tired smile. Her eyes, etched with deep lines, scanned the dining room, filled with white tablecloths and flickering candles. The aroma of roasted turkey and cinnamon floated in the air, blending with the cheerful chatter and the clink of silverware. Pine wreaths and golden lights trailed along the dark wooden walls, reflecting in the diner's bright eyes. Emma wove through the tables, expertly balancing a tray loaded with champagne flutes. Her steps were swift, the product of decades of experience, but her shoulders carried the invisible burden of unspoken worries. "More wine, sir?" she asked automatically, leaning over to top up the glass of a portly customer. The man nodded absent-mindedly, not taking his eyes off his companion. As she straightened, Emma's gaze was drawn to the large front window. Through the fogged glass, she made out small quivering silhouettes. She blinked, focusing. Her heart clenched. They were children, 3 or 4, at most. Their thin faces pressed to the glass, wide eyes locked on the abundance of food inside. The youngest was probably no older than 6, her ragged hair partially covering hollow eyes and gaunt cheeks. Emma felt her throat tighten. Her hands clenched the tray so hard her knuckles turned white. For a moment, she saw her own reflection in those famished eyes, recalling a distant past she fought to bury. "Emma, table 7 is waiting for their appetizers." Madeleine's sharp voice, the stern-faced manager, tore through the air like a lash. Emma blinked, snapping back to reality. She nodded hastily and walked to the kitchen, but not before casting one last glance at the children by the window. They remained there, their pleading eyes trailing after her. In the bustling kitchen, pots clattered and knives tapped cutting boards at a frenzied pace. Jack, the red-bearded chef with a ready smile, barked orders while deftly managing steaming pans. "Emma, dear, can you take these canapes to table 7? Jack asked, sliding a plate her way. Their eyes locked briefly, and he furrowed his brow. "Everything okay?" Emma mustered another smile. "Sure, just tired. Busy night." She took the plate, but her thoughts were far away. The children at the window. Could she do something, slip them a plate of leftovers? But Madeleine was inflexible about the rules. Handing out free food was grounds for immediate dismissal. Emma needed her job. She had bills to pay, and her ill nephew was depending on her support. Back on the dining floor, Emma distributed the canapes, her professional smile masking inner turmoil. Her gaze kept drifting toward the window. The children were still there, their eyes a mixture of hope and resignation. Madeleine stood at the bar, surveying the room with hawk-like vigilance, her posture rigid, lips pursed into a thin line. Emma knew any misstep would be instantly noted. The clock on the wall showed 9:30 p.m. It would be hours before her shift ended. Emma took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision she was about to make. Help the children and risk everything, or ignore them and bear the guilt. While pouring another round of drinks, her gaze locked with that of a girl at the window. For a split second, everything else faded. In that child's eyes, Emma glimpsed a younger version of herself, frightened and hungry. Her heart beat faster. A determination began to take shape in her mind. With trembling hands, Emma grabbed another tray of champagne. Passing through the kitchen, her fingers grazed a plate of freshly baked croissants. The bell above the door chimed again. Emma looked from Madeleine to the children by the window, then toward the back door. It was time to choose. The clock at the cozy corner read 11:30 p.m., and Emma felt the weight of each minute. Her eyes burned with fatigue, but her mind whirled with plans to help the children she'd seen earlier. The restaurant's buzz felt distant, muffled by the urgency of her thoughts. While clearing a recently vacated table, Emma did a quick mental calculation. How many rolls could go missing without raising suspicion? Maybe some of the fruit decorating the desserts. Her gaze drifted toward the kitchen, where Jack, the red-haired chef with an easy grin, led his team like a maestro. "Emma, dear, can you take these dishes to table 8? Jack's voice pulled her from her musings. She turned to find the chef watching her curiously. "Sure, Jack," she replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Jack frowned, leaning in. "You okay? You seem distracted tonight." Emma hesitated, overwhelmed by a sudden urge to share her secret. Jack was always kind, understanding, but the risk was too great. "Just tired," she murmured, grabbing the plates. "Long night." The chef nodded, though he didn't seem entirely convinced. "If you need to talk—" "Thanks, Jack," Emma interrupted gently, heading off to table 8. Turning around, she nearly collided with Madeline. The manager, a tall woman with impeccably styled grey hair, raised an eyebrow. "Is there a problem, Emma?" "No," Emma replied hastily, beads of sweat forming on her forehead. "Just taking the order to table 8. Madeline observed her for a moment, eyes sharp as razors. "Well, hurry up. We have more customers coming in." Emma nodded, feeling Madeline's gaze burning into her back as she walked away. The tension in the air was tangible, like a tightly stretched cord ready to snap. While serving table 8, Emma caught snippets of conversation from a nearby table. "Mrs. Sarah, yes, so devoted to that orphanage. I heard she spent the day there today, organizing a Christmas party for the children." Emma allowed herself a tiny smile. Sarah, the owner of the Cozy Corner, was known for her charitable work with the local orphanage. It was ironic, Emma thought, that while the owner was dedicated to underprivileged children, others were literally right outside the restaurant, hungry and forgotten. The doorbell chimed, signaling new arrivals. Emma watched a group of well-dressed executives enter, laughing loudly and shaking snow off their expensive coats. The contrast between them and the kids outside made her stomach turn. Renewed determination surged within Emma as she returned to the kitchen. Seizing a moment when Jack was preoccupied, she slipped some rolls and slices of cheese into her apron. Her heart pounded, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Emma?" Madeline's voice sounded behind her, making her freeze. "What are you doing?" Emma turned slowly, forcing a smile. "Just checking the bread supply." "I thought we might be running low." Madeline narrowed her eyes. "That's not your job. Get back to the dining room. We have customers waiting." Emma nodded, feeling like a child caught stealing cookies. She left the kitchen, though not before glancing out the window. The children were nowhere in sight, but she knew they'd be back. As the night wore on, tension in the restaurant rose. More and more customers arrived, demanding immediate attention. Emma moved from table to table, delivering plates and refilling glasses, ever mindful of the front door and Madeline's watchful eye. In a brief lull, Emma slipped out the back for a moment. The cold night air hit her like a slap, but she barely felt it, focused on her mission. "Lily," she called softly, peering around. "Kids." For a moment, there was only silence. Then, like ghosts, the children emerged from the shadows. Lily led them, her large eyes shining with cautious hope. "You came back," she whispered, almost in disbelief. Emma smiled, her heart clenching. "I promised, didn't I?" She pulled the food from her apron, handing it out quickly. "I can't stay long, but I'll come back later, okay?" The children nodded, offering muffled thanks between hungry bites. Lily grabbed Emma's hand for a moment, giving it a light squeeze. "Thank you," she said, her small voice brimming with gratitude. Emma felt tears sting her eyes. She wanted to do more, to say more, but time was running out. With a final wave, she headed back inside. Upon entering the kitchen, Emma nearly ran into Jack. The chef looked her up and down, noticing her flushed cheeks from the cold. "Out for some fresh air again?" he asked, his voice neutral but his eyes full of curiosity. Emma nodded, at a loss for words. Jack studied her for a moment before sighing. "Whatever it is, Emma, be careful. Madeline is watching you." Before Emma could respond, Madeline's shrill voice cut through the air. "Emma, where have you been? Table 12 has been waiting on their order for 10 minutes. Emma shot Jack an apologetic look and dashed into the dining room. As she served table 12, she felt Madeline's piercing stare drilling into her back. The night seemed endless. Emma continued her work, moving like an automaton from table to table, her body in the restaurant but her mind on the children outside. Each time she passed the front window, she cast a quick glance, hoping to see those familiar faces. By 1:30 a.m., the last customers finally started to leave. Emma's body ached from exhaustion, but she knew her night wasn't over yet. She had one last promise to keep. As she cleared tables, she discreetly gathered leftover bread and other non-perishable food. Her heart pounded, fully aware of the risks, but the memory of Lily's hungry eyes spurred her on. "Emma!" Madeline's voice made her jump. The manager stood just a few steps away, eyes narrowed with suspicion. "What exactly do you think you're doing?" Emma swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the hidden food in her apron. This was the moment of truth. What could she say? How could she explain? The air crackled with tension. Emma knew her next words could change everything. The clock at the cozy corner read 1:45 a.m. The restaurant was nearly empty, the last few patrons collecting their coats and bidding intoxicated farewells. Emma, body exhausted but mind on high alert, moved through the tables like a shadow, gathering plates and silverware. Yet her eyes were fixed on the front window. Outside, partially shrouded by darkness, she could make out the familiar silhouettes. The children had returned, just as she had promised. Emma's heart pounded. "Emma!" Jack's voice echoed from the kitchen. "Could you come here a minute?" She hesitated, torn between his call and the urgency of helping the children. With one last glance at the window, Emma headed to the kitchen. Jack stood with his back turned, sorting through the night's leftovers. "Could you help me put these away?" he asked, gesturing to a stack of unused bread and croissants. Emma's eyes widened. It was the perfect opportunity. "Sure," she replied, trying to keep her voice casual. While Jack busied himself with utensils, Emma began to organize the bread, discreetly slipping several items into her apron. Her heart pounded so loudly she feared Jack might hear. "Everything okay over there?" Jack asked, turning around. Emma forced a smile. "All good. I'm done here. I'll just take out the trash." Jack nodded, though concern lingered in his eyes. "Emma," he began softly, hesitating. "If you need anything at all." "I'm fine, Jack," she cut in gently. "Thank you." With hurried steps, Emma left the kitchen. The dining area was now almost deserted, just one lingering couple finishing their drinks. Madeline was at the bar, closing out the day's receipts. Emma took a deep breath. It was now or never. In one smooth motion, she grabbed a nearby bottle of water and headed toward the back door. "Just taking out the trash," she mumbled to no one in particular. The frigid early morning air hit her like a wave. Emma shivered, though not just from the cold. Adrenaline still coursed through her veins. "Lily?" she called softly. "Kids?" As if summoned from the darkness, the small, ragged figures emerged from the shadows. Lily stood at the front, her big eyes glimmering with a mix of hope and fear. "You came," Emma whispered, a lump in her throat. Swiftly, she began pulling bread and croissants from her apron. "Here, take these. Quickly." The children approached, trembling hands reaching for the food. Emma watched, heartbreaking, as they devoured the rolls with desperate hunger. That's when she heard it. The sound of footsteps behind her. "Emma? What on earth do you think you're doing?" Emma's blood ran cold. Slowly, she turned to face Madeleine. The manager stood in the back doorway, eyes wide with shock and fury. "Madeleine, I can explain," Emma began, but was cut off. "Explain!" Madeleine hissed, her voice trembling with anger. "Explain how you're stealing food from this restaurant to feed these vagrants." The children recoiled, some darting back into the shadows. Lily, however, stayed by Emma's side, clutching her hand. "They're not vagrants," Emma shot back, her own anger rising. "They're hungry children, Madeleine. Children who need help." Madeleine stepped forward, fury contorting her features. "What they need is none of our concern. Our concern is keeping this restaurant afloat, something you clearly don't understand." The argument escalated. Emma could see from the corner of her eye the last customers peering through the window, drawn by the commotion. "How can you be so heartless?" Emma yelled, tears of frustration burning her eyes. "Look at them. They're starving." "And you're fired," Madeleine roared back. Get your things and get out of here right now. I never want to see you near this restaurant again. Emma's world seemed to crumble. Fired. She knew the risk she was taking, but the reality hit her like a punch in the gut. That was when a new voice cut through the chaos. What's going on here? Emma and Madeline both turned, stunned. Standing at the entrance to the alley was Sarah, the owner of the restaurant. Her eyes swept across the scene. Emma with tears in her eyes, Madeline flushed with rage, and the street children huddled in the shadows. Sarah, Madeline began, her voice shaking slightly. I caught Emma stealing food to feed these street kids. I fired her on the spot, of course. Sarah looked at Emma, who was still holding Lily's hand. Is this true, Emma? Emma swallowed, but held her ground. Yes, it's true. I couldn't just ignore them, Sarah. They're hungry, alone. Sarah raised a hand, stopping her. Her eyes locked on Lily, and something changed in her expression. Recognition, compassion. Madeline, Sarah said calmly, please escort the remaining customers inside and offer them a complimentary drink. Emma, you and the children, come with me. Madeline opened her mouth to protest, but Sarah's look silenced her. With a final furious glance at Emma, she turned and went back into the restaurant. Emma felt Lily squeeze her hand. Looking down, she saw fear in the girl's eyes. It's all right, Emma whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was reassuring Lily or herself. Sarah approached the children, her face softening. You must be starving, she said gently. Why don't we go inside and fix you something warm to eat? The children exchanged wary glances. Lily was the first to step forward, pulling Emma with her. As the group headed for the restaurant's back entrance, Emma couldn't help noticing the intense look Sarah gave Lily. There was something there, an untold story. The bell above the door jingled as they entered, and Emma felt every eye turn toward them. The few remaining customers, Madeline and even Jack from the kitchen, all watched in shocked silence as Sarah led the unusual group to a table in the corner. The tension in the air was palpable. Emma knew this moment would change everything, for her, for the children, and maybe even for the cozy corner. As she sat with Lily at her side, Emma met Sarah's gaze. A silent question lingered there, a decision waiting to be made. What would happen next? The silence inside the cozy corner was deafening. Sarah, the restaurant's owner, remained motionless, her eyes fixed on the street children Emma had brought in. But it was Lily, the little girl with large eyes and tangled hair, who captured all her attention. It can't be, Sarah murmured, her voice barely audible. Emma, still holding Lily's hand, stepped forward. Sarah, I can explain. I know I shouldn't have. Sarah raised a hand, cutting her off. Her gaze never left Lily's face. Slowly, she knelt down to the girl's level. Lily? Sarah asked softly, her voice trembling. Do you remember me? The little girl furrowed her brow, studying Sarah's face. Then, like the sun breaking through clouds, a spark of recognition lit her eyes. Mrs. Sarah? Lily whispered in disbelief. From the orphanage. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Emma glanced from Lily to Sarah, confused. You know each other? Sarah nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. Yes, we do. She turned to Emma, her expression a swirl of emotions. I volunteer at the local orphanage on weekends. Lily was one of the children there. Memories flooded Sarah's mind, vivid and painful. Flashback. Sarah walked through the orphanage halls, carrying a box of donated books. Children's laughter echoed through the building, but a different sound caught her attention, a soft sob coming from a dark corner. There, huddled behind a bookshelf, was Lily. Her small shoulders shook with silent tears. Hello, Sarah said gently, kneeling beside the girl. What happened, sweetheart? Lily lifted a tear-stained face. Nobody wants to play with me, she whispered. They say I'm weird. Sarah's heart broke. She set the box aside and sat next to Lily. You know, I felt weird too when I was a kid, she confessed. But you know what? Being different is what makes us special. Lily looked at her with curiosity. Really? Sarah smiled, pulling a book from the box. Absolutely. How about we read a story together? This one's about a very special girl who makes friends with a dragon. Lily's eyes lit up. As Sarah began reading, the girl snuggled closer, the outside world momentarily forgotten. End of flashback. Back in the present, Sarah blinked away her tears. Lily, what happened? Why aren't you at the orphanage? The girl lowered her gaze, her small hand gripping Emma's. I ran away, she muttered. They were going to send me far away. To a new family. I got scared. Emma felt her heart ache. Kneeling beside Lily, she put a protective arm around the girl. Oh, sweetheart, she whispered. Sarah looked devastated. We searched for you for weeks. Lily, I feared the worst. The restaurant was silent. The few remaining customers, the kitchen staff, even Madeleine, all watched, transfixed and moved by the unfolding scene. Jack, the chef, stepped forward, breaking the silence. Sarah, maybe we should get these kids something to eat. They look exhausted. Sarah nodded, grateful for the suggestion. Yes, of course. Jack, can you prepare something light, and maybe some hot chocolate? As Jack disappeared into the kitchen, Sarah stood and turned to Emma. Emma, I don't know how to thank you. If it weren't for you... Emma shook her head. I just did what anyone should do. I couldn't leave them out there starving. Madeleine, who had been watching silently, stepped forward. Sarah, about Emma's dismissal. Sarah raised a hand. Not now, Madeleine. Let's look after the children first. Then we'll talk about that. Lily, who had been taking all this in quietly, suddenly spoke. Mrs. Sarah. Her voice was small but full of emotion. I'm sorry I ran away. I was scared. Sarah knelt again, her eyes level with Lily's. Oh, sweetheart, don't apologize. I'm just so happy you're safe. She hesitated before continuing. Lily, would you like to come back to the orphanage with me? I promise no one will make you go anywhere against your will. Lily looked at Emma, doubt shining in her eyes. Emma smiled reassuringly. It's all right, Lily. Mrs. Sarah will take good care of you, and I promise I'll visit if I can. The girl seemed to consider this for a moment, then slowly nodded. Okay, she whispered. At that moment, Jack returned carrying a tray of sandwiches and steaming mugs of hot chocolate. The other children, who had been watching warily from the corner, approached, enticed by the smell. Sarah stood, looking at the group of hungry children. Her face reflected both determination and compassion. Let's feed them first, she said. Then we need to figure out how to help each of them. Emma nodded, a wave of relief and gratitude washing over her. As she helped pass out sandwiches and hot chocolate, she couldn't help noticing the curious and admiring looks from the remaining customers and staff. The cozy corner, normally a bastion of elegance and formality, had transformed. On this cold Christmas Eve, it became a sanctuary of compassion and hope. As Lily took a bite of her sandwich, her eyes flicked between Emma and Sarah. There was gratitude there, but also a glimmer of something more. Hope, perhaps. Hope that, at last, she had found people who truly cared. Sarah approached Emma, speaking quietly. When the children finish eating, we need to talk. About your job, about Lily, about all of this. Emma nodded, feeling a mixture of apprehension and hope. She knew tonight would change everything. For her, for Lily, for all the children. The bell above the door chimed again, and all eyes turned to the entrance. A tall, imposing figure stepped inside, shaking the snow from her coat. Sarah, I got your message. What's happened? The voice trailed off abruptly as she took in the scene before her. Sarah stepped forward. Ah, Clara, I'm glad you're here. We have a lot to discuss. Emma regarded the newcomer, sensing her air of authority. Who was she? And how would her arrival affect the fate of these children? The night, already filled with surprises, seemed far from over. The cozy corner, normally a haven of elegance and tranquility, was now brimming with a tense, unusual energy. The street children, still chewing the last bites of their sandwiches, watched wide-eyed as the adults formed a tight circle near the bar. Sarah, the restaurant's owner, ran a hand through her hair, her expression a mixture of worry and resolve. Her eyes lingered on Emma, who stood protectively beside Lily. "Emma," Sarah began, her voice low but firm, "I need to understand exactly what happened tonight. How long have you been secretly feeding these children?" Emma swallowed, feeling the weight of everyone's gaze on her. Madeline, in particular, stared at her with a mix of anger and disapproval. "It started a few weeks ago," Emma admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I saw them through the window, looking in with so much hunger. I couldn't just ignore them." Sarah nodded slowly, her eyes softening a bit. "Why didn't you come to me? Or to Madeline?" Emma let out a bitter laugh. "With all due respect, Sarah, you're barely here, always busy with the orphanage. And Madeline." She glanced at the manager. "Well, I think her reaction tonight says it all." Madeline took a step forward, her face flushing with indignation. "This is a fine dining establishment, not a charity soup kitchen. What did you expect me to do? Let you give away our food for free? And let children starve on our doorstep?" Emma shot back, her voice rising. "Enough," Sarah intervened, raising her hands. "This isn't getting us anywhere." She turned to Emma, her expression softening. "Emma, I understand your intentions were good, but you have to see that what you did was decomplicated." Emma felt tears of frustration burn her eyes. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I've been in their shoes." Silence fell over the group. Sarah tilted her head, encouraging Emma to continue. With a deep sigh, Emma began, "When I was a child, there was a time my family had nothing to eat. We went hungry for weeks. If it hadn't been for a kind neighbor who brought us leftovers from her restaurant," she shook her head, unable to go on. Emotion distorted Sarah's features. "Oh, Emma, I had no idea." That was when Jack, the chef, stepped forward. "I knew," he said softly. All eyes turned to him. "I knew what Emma was doing, and I supported her." Madeline gasped. "You knew, and said nothing?" Jack met her gaze without flinching. "No, I didn't, because I agreed with Emma. We couldn't just ignore these kids." Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, as if trying to process everything. When she opened them again, her gaze landed on Lily, who was watching with large, frightened eyes. "As for you, young lady," Sarah said, her voice considerably gentler, "I'm very worried. Why did you run away from the orphanage? Do you know how many people were worried about you?" Lily lowered her head, her small fingers fiddling with the hem of her ragged shirt. I heard them talking about sending me away," she muttered, "to a new family. I got scared." Sarah knelt in front of Lily, gently taking her hands. "Oh, sweetheart, we'd never send you somewhere you didn't want to go. We were just discussing possibilities, for your own good." Emma watched them, a tightness in her throat. The connection between Sarah and Lily was palpable, a blend of tenderness and concern beyond a typical volunteer-child relationship. Madeline, however, looked unimpressed. "This is all very touching," she said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "But what about the restaurant? What will our regular customers think if they find out we're feeding street kids out back?" Sarah stood abruptly, facing Madeline. "Our customers? That's what concerns you right now, Madeline. There are starving children, and you're worried about what wealthy people will think." The air crackled with tension. Jack placed a hand on Madeline's shoulder, as if trying to calm her. "Maybe," he suggested quietly, "we can turn this into something positive. Show our customers that the Cozy Corner cares about the community." Emma nodded enthusiastically. "Yes. We could host charity events, use our influence to help." "Stop!" Madeline shouted, her voice echoing through the restaurant. The children flinched, startled. "Are you all insane? This will destroy everything we've built." Sarah took a step toward Madeline, her face set with determination. "What we've built, Madeline, is a successful business, but at what cost? ignoring the suffering right on our doorstep. Silence fell. All eyes were on Sarah, waiting to see what she would do next. At last, Sarah turned to Emma. "Emma, what you did was against the restaurant's rules. There's no denying that." Emma felt her heart sink, but Sarah continued, "However, your actions also forced us to confront an uncomfortable truth. We can't keep pretending we don't see what's happening around us." She then turned to Madeline. "As for you, Madeline, I understand your concern for the business. But if the Cozy Corner's success means closing our eyes to suffering, maybe we need to rethink what success really is." Madeline opened her mouth to protest, but Sarah raised a hand, silencing her. "I'm not saying we'll turn the restaurant into a shelter, but we can and must do more." Sarah then looked at Lily and the other children. Her expression softened, a mix of tenderness and resolve lighting her eyes. "As for all of you, we'll make sure you have somewhere safe to stay tonight. Tomorrow we'll contact the orphanage and figure out how to help each of you." Lily stepped hesitantly towards Sarah. Can I go back to the orphanage?" Sarah smiled, stroking the girl's cheek. "Of course, dear. And I promise I'll visit you often, okay?" Emma watched, relief and gratitude washing over her. She had risked everything to help these children, and now the future looked uncertain but filled with possibilities. "What about me?" Emma asked softly. "Am I still fired?" Sarah exchanged a look with Madeline before answering, "I think we all need a night to think. Tomorrow, we'll have a serious conversation about the future, yours and the restaurant's." As the group began to disperse, each person processing the night's events, Emma couldn't help noticing the look Sarah gave Lily. It was filled with kindness, worry, and something else. Something Emma couldn't quite decipher. Whatever the future held, one thing was certain. The Cozy Corner, and everyone involved, would never be the same again. The chatter inside the Cozy Corner grew louder by the minute. What started as a normal Christmas Eve had turned into a whirlwind of emotions and heated debates. The few customers still there, instead of leaving, had become invested participants in the unfolding drama. "You can't fire Emma!" The shrill voice of a middle-aged woman wearing a pearl necklace rang out. "She was just feeding hungry children, for goodness sake." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the dining room. Emma, standing near the children, felt her cheeks heat. She wasn't used to being the center of attention, let alone having people defend her so passionately. Sarah, visibly exhausted, held up her hands in a calming gesture. "Please, ladies and gentlemen, I understand your concern, but nothing," a man in a suit interjected, rising from his seat. "This restaurant has been a pillar of the community for years. We can't just ignore what's going on outside." Madeleine, her face red with frustration, tried to intervene. "Sir, we appreciate your loyalty to the Cozy Corner, but this is an internal matter and—" "Internal?" a young woman exclaimed, indignant. "Since when are hunger and suffering internal matters? We're talking about kids on the streets." The debate intensified, voices overlapping. Some passionately defended Emma, others fretted about the restaurant's reputation, and still others proposed immediate solutions to help the kids. "What if we set up a fundraiser?" one customer suggested. "We could host a monthly charity dinner," another proposed. Emma watched in silence, her eyes drifting between the fervent faces of the customers, the confused expressions of the children, and the tense looks on Sarah and Madeline. Her heart pounded, a mix of hope and apprehension swelling within her. Jack, the chef, emerged from the kitchen, drawn by the commotion. He shot Emma a concerned glance before approaching Sarah. "Boss," he said quietly, "maybe we should hear what they have to say. This could be a unique opportunity." Sarah nodded slowly, her eyes flitting to Lily, who clung to Emma's hand as though her life depended on it. The bond between the restaurant owner and the little street girl was almost tangible, charged with an emotion that went beyond mere compassion. "All right," Sarah said finally, her firm voice cutting through the din. "We'll hear your suggestions. But remember, any decision must balance our good intentions with long-term feasibility." A momentary hush settled over the room, broken only by the soft sound of Lily sniffling beside Emma. Then, an elderly man who had been observing silently from a corner rose slowly. His immaculate suit and upright posture suggested someone of considerable influence. "If I may," he began, his voice calm yet authoritative, "I am Dr. Alvarez, director of the New Horizons Foundation. Our work is precisely about building bridges between businesses and social projects." All eyes turned to him, eager and attentive. "What I see here," Dr. Alvarez continued, "is a unique opportunity. The Cozy Corner has an enviable reputation and a loyal clientele. Why not use that to benefit these children?" He paused, his gaze sweeping the room before landing on Sarah. "I propose a partnership. The restaurant could hold regular fundraising events, with a portion of the proceeds going to the orphanage and programs for street children. In return, our foundation would provide logistical and legal support to ensure everything is done properly." A ripple of approval coursed through the room. Sarah and Madeline exchanged astonished, thoughtful looks. Emma, feeling a surge of hope, stepped forward. "And what about the kids not in the system? The ones living on the streets, like Lily was?" Dr. Alvarez offered a gentle smile. "Excellent question, my dear. Part of the program could include a social work team to identify and assist those children, providing not just food, but also guidance and tunkies where possible, family reunification, or referrals to proper shelters." The tension in the air began to ease, replaced by a current of possibility and hope. Customers volunteered on the spot, some even pulling out checkbooks to make immediate donations. Madeline, who had worn a skeptical expression all evening, appeared to reconsider. Could this really work?" she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. Tears brimmed in Sarah's eyes. She knelt beside Lily once again, taking the girl's small hands. "What do you think, sweetheart? Would you like to help us make this happen?" Lily, eyes wide with excitement, nodded vigorously. "Yes, please. Can I help other kids like me?" Sarah's smile was radiant. "Of course you can, my love. You'll be our special consultant." Emma looked around, emotions swirling in her chest. Relief, hope, but also a twinge of sorrow for her own past. Seeing the transformation unfolding before her eyes, she wondered if perhaps the time had come to share her full story. Jack sidled up beside her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You did this, Emma," he said softly. "You started something incredible here." Emma swallowed hard, tears threatening to spill. "I just did what felt right," she whispered. The chef smiled, giving her shoulder a gentle squeeze. "Sometimes that's all it takes to change the world." As the room buzzed with plans and ideas, Emma allowed herself, for the first time that hectic night, to truly believe everything would be okay. Her small act of kindness had set in motion something far greater than she ever could have imagined. On that Christmas Eve, the Cozy Corner was no longer just a restaurant. But at that moment, in the Cozy Corner, hope shone brighter than the Christmas lights. The Cozy Corner bustled with unusual energy in the early hours of Christmas morning. What began as a festive evening of fine dining had become an impromptu forum of compassion and new ideas. At the core, Sarah, the restaurant owner, Madeline, the no-nonsense manager, and Emma, the waitress with a big heart, formed an unlikely trio, bound by the extraordinary events of the night. It was in this moment of collective uncertainty that Jackie, the red-haired chef with an easygoing smile, stepped forward, wiping his hands on his apron. "I have an idea," he announced, his deep voice cutting through the chatter. Everyone turned to him expectantly. "What if we turned tomorrow's Christmas dinner into a charity event for the kids and the orphanage?" A hush fell over the restaurant, followed by an explosion of excited voices. Sarah blinked, taken aback by the boldness of the proposal. "Jack, it's quite an idea, but how would we do that on such short notice?" Madeline, predictably cautious, frowned. "That's madness. We have reservations, a planned menu, everything set. We can't just flip everything upside down overnight." Emma, however, felt a surge of hope. "Why not?" she challenged, her eyes shining with determination. "If we all work together, we can make it happen." Jack nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. We can keep the original menu but add some simpler, more affordable options. We can convert the dining room into a more welcoming space, invite the kids from the orphanage, and ask guests to donate on top of the meal cost." The debate that followed was heated. Sarah, torn between excitement and logistical concerns, listened carefully to each argument. Madeline rattled off a list of obstacles: financial, practical, reputational, while Emma and Jack provided creative solutions to each one. "What about suppliers?" Madeline asked. "We don't have enough ingredients for a larger event." Jack grinned. "I know a few who'd be happy to donate on short notice, especially for a good cause." "And the decorations?" Sarah inquired, starting to warm up to the idea. Emma stepped forward. "I can call some artist friends. I'm sure they'd love to help create a festive, welcoming atmosphere." While the adults debated, Lily, the little girl who had catalyzed the entire transformation, tugged timidly on Sarah's sleeve. "Mrs. Sarah?" she called, her small voice clear. "Can I say something?" Sarah immediately knelt down, meeting the girl's eyes. "Of course, sweetheart. What is it?" Lily took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "At the orphanage, we always dreamed of a Christmas like this, with tasty food, pretty decorations, and people who care." Tears welled in her eyes. Many kids there never had a real Christmas. The entire dining room fell silent, moved by the child's simple yet powerful words. Sarah felt her heart twist, a mix of compassion and resolve flooding her. Emma, seeing the emotion in everyone's eyes, stepped forward. I want to help," she said, her voice trembling with resolve. "I know I've been fired, but I'd like to use whatever payout I have to help fund this event." Madeline, who had maintained a skeptical stance, seemed to soften. "Emma, you don't have to do that. We can discuss your job." But Emma shook her head. "No, I want to do it. It's the right thing to do." Sarah rose slowly, her gaze sweeping the room. She saw the determination on the faces of her staff, the hope in the children's eyes, and the anticipation in the customers who had stayed to witness it all. "Very well," she said at last, her voice thick with emotion. "Let's make this happen. But we need to think beyond tomorrow. We need to consider how to help Lily and the other children long term." Jack nodded eagerly. "How about we set up a regular program? Maybe a monthly charity dinner? And we could offer cooking classes for the orphanage kids," one of the sous chefs suggested, joining in. Ideas flowed freely. A waiter proposed a mentorship program for teenagers interested in hospitality. A customer volunteered to give music lessons. Another pledged regular donations of books and school supplies. Emma watched in wonder, her heart swelling with emotion. Her small act of kindness had sparked something far greater than she ever imagined. Sensing the momentum, Sarah grabbed a napkin and a pen. "All right, let's organize. First, tomorrow's event. Jack, you handle the menu and kitchen. Emma, you coordinate decorations and contact volunteers. Madeline." She paused, looking at her manager. Madeline sighed, but a faint smile tugged at her lips. "I'll handle logistics and finances. Someone has to make sure we don't bankrupt the restaurant while saving the world." A ripple of laughter lightened the tension. "Great," Sarah continued. "As for the long term, we'll form a committee to develop these programs, working closely with the orphanage and other local organizations." While Sarah spoke, Emma noticed Lily watching with wide, admiring eyes. The waitress knelt beside the girl. "What do you think of all this, Lily?" she asked gently. Lily smiled, a genuine smile that lit her entire face. "It's like a dream," she whispered. "I never thought so many people could care this much." Emma felt tears prickle her eyes. "Sometimes," she said, voice trembling, "all it takes is one person to take the first step. Then magic happens." Overhearing, Sarah approached the pair. She knelt, putting herself at Lily's eye level. "Lily, darling, I want you to know that no matter what happens, you have a place here with us. We'll take care of you and help other kids like you. I promise." Lily's eyes filled with tears, and she threw herself into Sarah's arms in a tight hug. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath, witnessing the emotional moment. As planning continued around them, Emma took a moment to reflect. She remembered her own difficult childhood, the struggles she faced, and how a single act of kindness might have changed everything. Now, she was at the center of a change that could impact dozens, maybe even hundreds of lives. Jack approached, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did this, Emma," he said softly. "You lit this spark." Emma shook her head, overcome with emotion. She knew the road ahead would be challenging. Transforming a Christmas Eve into a charitable event was one thing. Sustaining that spirit in the long run was another. But looking around, seeing the resolve in everyone's faces, the hope in Lily's eyes, and the warmth of this newfound community, Emma believed they would succeed. The cozy corner on this extraordinary Christmas Eve was forever changed. From a simple fine dining restaurant, it had turned into the beating heart of a community united by compassion and hope. And as the clock struck the early hours of Christmas morning, Emma felt, for the first time in a long while, that she was exactly where she belonged, doing exactly what she was meant to do. Christmas, after all, was about miracles. And here at the cozy corner, a miracle was just beginning to unfold. The cozy corner, usually an oasis of elegance and calm, now hummed with frantic activity. The clock on the wall read 4:30 a.m., but no one seemed to notice the late hour. The decision to host a Christmas charity event had been made, and now it was a race against time to make it happen. Sarah, her hair disheveled and her eyes alight with determination, stood at the center of the organized chaos, assigning tasks and coordinating efforts. "Jack, I need a new menu in an hour, something we can prepare in large quantities without sacrificing quality," she instructed, her voice firm but kind. The red-haired chef nodded, already scribbling ideas on a notepad. "I'm thinking a buffet with both hot and cold options. We'll do a traditional Christmas roast, but also include simpler, comforting dishes the kids will love." Meanwhile, Emma and a group of volunteers, a mix of staff and customers who had stayed to help, were rearranging the dining room. Tables were moved to create more open, welcoming spaces. Christmas decorations were repositioned, transforming the elegant venue into something cozier and more festive. "We can use these smaller tables to create little activity corners for the kids," Emma suggested, her face lit with excitement. "Maybe a drawing station and a reading corner." Sarah, passing by, was impressed by Emma's suggestions. "That's brilliant. How do you know so much about what the kids need?" Emma hesitated briefly, a flicker of vulnerability crossing her face. I spent some time in an orphanage when I was a child," she admitted softly. "I know how much small details can matter." Sarah rested a supportive hand on Emma's shoulder, a new understanding passing between them. "Your insight is invaluable, Emma. Thank you for sharing." To everyone's surprise, Madeline had taken charge of logistics with impressive efficiency. She was on the phone, haggling with suppliers and arranging emergency deliveries. "No, we need those extra tablecloths here in 2 hours, not tomorrow," she insisted. "It's for a Christmas charity event. Yes, I know it's short notice, but look, if you do this, I'll make sure the Cozy Corner does exclusive business with you next year." "Deal." "Great." Sarah watched Madeline, a mix of surprise and admiration on her face. "I never thought I'd see her so involved in something like this," she remarked to Emma. Emma smiled. Sometimes people just need the right opportunity to show what they're capable of. With the dining room taking shape, Sarah and Emma retreated to the office to handle the critical task of contacting the orphanage. Sarah dialed the number with trembling fingers. "Hello, Clara. It's Sarah. Sorry it's so early, but we have a situation." "No, nothing bad. Actually, something wonderful." As Sarah explained, Emma looked over at Lily, who had fallen asleep on a nearby sofa. The girl looked so small and vulnerable, yet there was a new peace in her face. "They're coming," Sarah announced, hanging up with a radiant smile. Clara is thrilled. She's going to bring as many kids as she can. Emma, we need to think about transportation. I can help with that, a voice offered from the doorway. It was Dr. Alvarez, the customer who'd suggested partnering with his foundation. I have contacts who can provide vans. News spread quickly, injecting fresh energy into the team. Jack emerged from the kitchen, smelling of spices and sauces. The menu's set, he announced. We've got roasted turkey, of course, but also mac and cheese, homemade chicken nuggets, a variety of salads, and plenty of desserts. Oh, and I'm making a special hot chocolate for the kids. Emma couldn't help but smile at the mention of hot chocolate. They'll love that, she said, recalling how a simple cup of hot cocoa once felt like an unimaginable luxury. As dawn broke, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, the cozy corner was unrecognizable. The elegant dining space had become warm and inviting. Activity tables were set, stocked with colored paper and crayons. A cozy reading corner was assembled, piled with cushions and donated children's books. Madeline, sporting dark circles under her eyes but an unwavering look of determination, checked her list for the 10th time. Food, check. Decorations, check. Activities, check. Transportation, Dr. Alvarez, are the vans on the way? He nodded, smiling. They'll arrive in about 30 minutes. The kids should be here before noon. Sarah surveyed the room, hardly believing the transformation. Her gaze landed on Emma, who was helping Lily pick out a dress from donated clothing that had poured in overnight. Emma, Sarah called softly. When the waitress approached, she continued, I just want to thank you for everything. Your small act of kindness started something extraordinary here. Emma felt tears prick at her eyes. I only did what I thought was right, she murmured. And that's why I want you to lead our new community outreach program, Sarah said, taking Emma by surprise. Your experience and compassion are exactly what we need. Before Emma could respond, Lily ran up, spinning in her new red dress. Look, Emma! Look, Mrs. Sarah! I look like a Christmas princess. They both laughed, the child's excitement infectious. You look beautiful, Lily, Sarah said, kneeling. Ready to welcome your friends from the orphanage? Lily nodded enthusiastically, then hesitated. Will they get to stay here too? Like me? Sarah exchanged a meaningful look with Emma before answering. We'll do everything we can to help each one, Lily, she promised. This is only the beginning. The sound of honking announced the arrival of the vans. Jack stepped out of the kitchen, flour smudged on his face but grinning ear to ear. Madeline straightened her posture, ready to receive the guests. Dr. Alvarez and other volunteers lined up, prepared to assist. Emma felt a surge of emotion. Just hours ago, she was on the verge of losing her job for feeding a handful of hungry children. Now, she stood at the center of something far bigger, something that could truly change lives. As the doors to the cozy corner opened to welcome the orphanage children, Emma knew this Christmas morning was just the start of an incredible journey, a journey of compassion, community, and transformation. The aroma of roasted turkey and hot chocolate filled the air, blending with the sound of childish laughter echoing through the dining room. The cozy corner on this Christmas morning was no longer just a restaurant. It was a home, a haven, a place of hope. And at the center of it all stood Emma, the waitress who dared to make a difference. With Lily clutching her hand and Sarah by her side, she stepped forward to greet the first of many guests, her heart brimming with gratitude and purpose. The cozy corner's Christmas miracle was only beginning. The midday sun bathed the cozy corner in golden light as the doors opened to welcome the special guests. The excited hum that had filled the air gave way to a reverent hush when the first children from the orphanage crossed the threshold. Wide-eyed, they took in the festive decorations, the tables laden with food, and the warm smiles greeting them. Many had never been somewhere so elegant, and the magic of the moment was almost tangible. Emma, standing beside Sarah at the entrance, felt her heart constrict at the mixture of emotions on the children's faces, wonder, shyness, and a cautious hope that was almost painful to see. Lily, in her red dress, was the first to break the spell. With a shout of joy, she ran to hug her friends, her happiness contagious and quickly spreading to the others. "Welcome to the cozy corner," Sarah announced, her voice kind but brimming with emotion. "Today, this place is yours. Please, make yourselves at home." As if a charm had been lifted, the dining room erupted into activity. Children raced around, exploring the craft corners, delighting in the decorations, and naturally gravitating toward the food tables. Jack, in his element, proudly served plate after plate, describing each dish with infectious enthusiasm. "This here is our special Christmas turkey," he explained to a group of curious kids. "And over here we've got mac and cheese, made with 3 different kinds of cheese." The delicious scent of freshly prepared food filled the air, mingling with the sound of laughter and animated conversation. Off to one side, Madeline, much to everyone's surprise, sat reading Christmas stories to a cluster of younger children, her usually stern voice softened by the spirit of the moment. Emma moved between tables, ensuring everyone was comfortable and well fed. She paused briefly, noticing a small girl eyeing a plate of chicken nuggets apprehensively. "Are you hungry?" Emma asked gently, kneeling beside the child. The little girl nodded, her eyes fixed on the food. "I've never seen so much food before," she whispered. Emma felt a lump rise in her throat as memories of her own orphanage days surfaced. "Well, today you can eat as much as you want," she said, placing a few nuggets on the child's plate. "And guess what? There's dessert after." The child's eyes lit up as she smiled timidly before beginning to eat. Emma lingered a moment longer, her heart full of conflicting emotions. Across the room, Sarah noticed the interaction and was struck by the bond Emma seemed to share with the children. There was something in her expression, a blend of understanding and sadness, that piqued Sarah's curiosity. As the afternoon wore on, the atmosphere in the cozy corner evolved into a true celebration of community and compassion. Longtime regulars mingled with the orphanage children, listening to their stories, offering words of encouragement, and in many cases, promising ongoing support. In a particularly moving moment, Lily stood on a chair, calling for everyone's attention. Her voice trembled, but she pressed on. "I just want to thank you all. I used to think nobody cared about kids like us, but today I know there are good people in the world." Not a single eye was dry when she finished. Sensing the moment, Sarah picked up a microphone. "Dear friends," she began, her voice thick with emotion. "What we're witnessing today is more than a simple Christmas dinner. It's a reminder of the power of compassion and the importance of community support." She paused, letting her gaze travel across the room. "Each child here deserves love, safety, and opportunities, and it's up to us as a community to ensure they have that. The Cozy Corner is committed to doing its part, but we need all of you." Sarah's words seemed to strike a chord. Instantly, offers of assistance poured in. A local business owner pledged scholarships. A retired teacher volunteered tutoring services. Families offered to host children on weekends. Emma, listening, felt as though her heart might burst. She found herself sharing her own story with a group of older kids, explaining how she overcame the challenges of growing up in an orphanage. "You're strong," she told them, her voice wavering. "And now you have people who believe in you. Don't ever forget that." Sarah, passing by, caught the tail end of Emma's speech. She stopped, placing a gentle hand on the waitress's shoulder. "You're amazing with them," Sarah remarked softly. Emma dabbed at a tear, smiling shakily. I know how it feels being on the other side." Sarah nodded, finally understanding the depth of Emma's connection to these children. "You've turned your pain into compassion, Emma. That's a precious gift." As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow through the cozy corner's windows, the event reached its peak. Children with full bellies and bright smiles played or dozed in cozy corners. Adults swapped contact information and made plans for future collaborations. In the center of it all, Emma, Sarah, and Lily formed an inseparable trio. Lily, exhausted but beaming, nestled into Sarah's arms, while Emma looked on with a tender smile. "What happens now?" Lily asked, her eyelids heavy with sleep. Sarah exchanged a meaningful glance with Emma before responding. "Now, sweetheart, we start building a better future for you and all the other children." Emma nodded, feeling a new resolve stirring within her. "And we'll do it together." As the cozy corner wound down its day of redemption, it was clear to everyone present that this wasn't an ending but a beginning. A journey of compassion, community, and transformation that promised to change not only the children's lives, but the entire town. At the heart of this transformation were three unlikely souls brought together by fate. Sarah, the restaurant owner with a heart of gold. Emma, the waitress who turned her own pain into a beacon of hope. And Lily, the street child whose courage touched them all. Christmas, after all, was about miracles. And in the cozy corner, one such miracle had blossomed, destined to grow for many years to come. By the time the final guests left the cozy corner, the sun had begun to set. The air was thick with the lingering aroma of the feast and echoes of children's laughter. Sarah stood, a mixture of exhaustion and fulfillment, watching her staff begin to tidy the dining room. Emma was near the window, gazing at the orange-tinted horizon. Her hands trembled slightly, and her shoulders were tense, signs that did not escape Sarah's notice. "Emma," Sarah called softly, approaching her. "Are you all right?" Emma turned, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Sarah, I need to tell you something. In private, if that's okay." Concerned and intrigued, Sarah nodded, guiding Emma to her office at the back of the restaurant. She closed the door, creating a cocoon of privacy. "What's going on, Emma?" Sarah asked gently, sitting down and motioning for Emma to do the same. Emma drew a shaky breath, her hands twisting anxiously in her lap. "Sarah, the reason I care so much about these kids, the reason I risked everything to help them, is because I've been where they are." Sarah tilted her head, confused. "What do you mean?" Emma paused, summoning courage. "I grew up in the same orphanage as Lily." The silence was deafening. Sarah felt as though the floor had dropped out from under her. You were an orphan?" Emma nodded, tears finally slipping down her cheeks. "I was abandoned as a baby. Spent my first 12 years in that orphanage." The revelation hung between them like a heavy weight. Sarah struggled to speak. I had no idea." Emma's gaze turned inward, memories surfacing in sharp detail. Flashback. An 8-year-old Emma sat alone in the orphanage yard, watching other children play. Her dress was faded and patched, her shoes too worn for her size. "Emma," a voice called. It was Mrs. Clara, the orphanage director. "Come, dear, there's a family here to meet you." Emma's heart pounded. Another family, another glimmer of hope. She followed Mrs. Clara to the visitation room, where a smiling couple awaited her. Hours later, Emma was back in the yard, alone once more. She overheard snippets of the adults' conversation. "She's too quiet. Maybe a younger child. Sorry, but we don't think this is the right fit." Emma shrugged, swallowing her tears. Another rejection, another hope dashed. End of flashback. "It was tough," Emma continued, voice trembling. "Every time a child got adopted, I felt both happy for them and crushed to be left behind." Sarah listened, horrified and moved. "Emma, I'm so sorry." "No one else knows," Emma said quietly. "That's why I had to help Lily and those kids. I know exactly what it's like to be hungry, alone, feeling forgotten by the world." Sarah stood abruptly, walking to the window. Her mind raced with this new information. How did you get out of that situation?" Emma smiled sadly. "When I was 12, I was adopted by a wonderful couple. They gave me love, education, opportunities, but the scars, they never fully heal." Sarah turned back, looking at Emma with new eyes. "That's why you risked your job, because you saw yourself in those children." Emma nodded. "Any one of them could have been me, and I promised myself that if I ever had the chance to make a difference, I would." They fell silent, the office heavy with emotion and newly discovered understanding. "Emma," Sarah began, her voice shaking, "I'm sorry I never noticed, that I didn't understand." Emma rose, approaching Sarah. "It's not your fault. I never told anyone here. But now, after everything that happened, after meeting Lily—" She paused, gathering her thoughts. "Sarah, the adoption and foster care system can be complicated and often fails, but with people who genuinely care, who really want to make a difference, we can change lives." Sarah nodded, tears trailing down her cheeks. "You're right, and we will make that difference, Emma. Together." A gentle knock on the door interrupted them. It opened slowly, revealing Lily, her curious eyes peering in with concern. "Are you okay?" the little girl asked timidly. "You sounded sad." Emma and Sarah exchanged a look before Emma knelt, opening her arms to Lily. The girl ran into them, and Sarah joined their embrace, arms encircling them both. "We're fine, sweetheart," Emma whispered, stroking Lily's hair. "In fact, we're more than fine." Sarah, still hugging them both, felt a surge of determination. "Lily," she said softly, "Emma just told me a very special story, one that will help us take even better care of you and the other children." Lily looked up, curiosity evident. "What story?" Emma exchanged a glance with Sarah before smiling at Lily. "It's a long one, sweetheart, but the most important thing is that it reminds us how much we need to look out for each other." For a long moment, they stayed intertwined in a warm embrace. It felt as though the universe had conspired to unite three wounded souls, offering them a chance for healing and redemption. When they finally parted, all three wore a renewed light in their eyes. Sarah gazed at Emma and Lily, feeling she was witnessing the start of something new. "I think," Sarah said slowly, a smile forming on her lips, "we have a lot to discuss and plan. How about some hot chocolate while we talk about the future?" Lily clapped her hands excitedly, and Emma smiled, wiping away the last of her tears. Hand in hand, the three left the office. A tangible aura of hope hung in the air. The cozy corner, which began the night as a mere restaurant, now seemed destined to become the epicenter of a far-reaching change. And at the core of that change were three hearts, bound by improbable circumstances, ready to face the challenges ahead and determined to make a difference, one child at a time. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, a day brimming with possibility. The cozy corner, still drowsy from the previous night's excitement, seemed somehow changed, like the building itself had been touched by the magic of what had transpired. Sarah arrived early, her footsteps echoing through the quiet dining room. She paused, recalling the scenes of the night before, children's laughter, generosity overflowing, and Emma's shocking revelation. With a determined sigh, she headed to her office. Soon, Emma and Madeleine joined her. The three women gathered around Sarah's desk, steaming cups of coffee in their hands and anticipation thick in the air. "Thank you both for coming in so early," Sarah began, her voice calm but resolute. "After last night, we have a lot to discuss." Madeleine nodded, her usually stern features softened by a thoughtful expression. "It was a very enlightening night." Emma stayed silent, her eyes trained on the coffee cup in front of her, clearly anxious about how her confession would be received. Sarah inhaled deeply before continuing. "First, I want you both to know I've made a decision. After everything that happened, after seeing our potential impact, I've decided I want to adopt Lily." A stunned silence followed, broken by the sound of Emma's cup rattling against its saucer. Her eyes widened, emotions flickering across her face. "Sarah, that's... wow," Emma finally managed. "Are you sure?" Sarah nodded, a soft smile on her lips. "I am. And, Emma, your story only solidified that decision." Madeleine cleared her throat, looking a bit awkward. "Sarah, I don't mean to sound insensitive, but have you considered all the implications? Running a restaurant while raising a child?" "That's why I'll need everyone's help," Sarah said, her gaze shifting between Madeleine and Emma. especially yours, Emma. Your experience will be invaluable." Emma straightened in her chair, a new confidence evident in her posture. "Of course, I'm here for whatever you need. The adoption process can be complicated and emotionally draining, and the adjustment, well, it takes time." For nearly an hour, Emma shared insights from her own experiences, the challenges of adapting to a new family, lingering insecurities, the necessity of patience and understanding. Above all, Emma concluded, Lily must feel unconditionally loved, knowing this is her permanent home, no matter what. Sarah listened intently, occasionally taking notes. Madeline, surprisingly, also seemed deeply invested. "Emma," Madeline said hesitantly, "your story, it changes a lot. I think we all need to reconsider how we view things around here." Sarah nodded emphatically. "Exactly. Which is why I want to expand our support programs for underprivileged kids. Emma, with your background, you'd be perfect to lead the initiative." Emma's eyes filled with tears. I'd love that. Being able to make this kind of difference." The conversation then shifted to practical ideas, charity dinners, mentorship programs, partnerships with local schools. The Cozy Corner would evolve into more than a restaurant. It would be a hub of hope for the community. When the meeting ended, a tangible sense of purpose and unity lingered among the three women. Madeleine, to everyone's surprise, was the first to offer assistance with the program's logistical side. "Now," Sarah said, standing up, "I think it's time we have a very important talk with a certain little girl." Emma and Sarah found Lily in the kitchen, where Jack was teaching her how to make pancakes. The child's face was dusted with flour, but her smile was radiant. "Lily, sweetheart," Sarah called softly, "could we talk for a bit?" Seated in a quiet corner of the restaurant, Sarah, Emma, and Lily formed a small circle. "Lily," Sarah began, her voice trembling slightly, "remember how we talked about finding a permanent home for you?" Lily nodded, her large eyes locked on Sarah's. "Well, I've been thinking and talking with Emma, and I wanted to know what you'd think if I adopted you, if you came to live with me for good." The silence that followed felt like an eternity. Slowly, Lily's face lit up like the dawn sky. "Sayo-san, you want to be my mom?" she whispered, as though afraid to hope. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, sweetheart, if you want that." With a cry of joy, Lily hurled herself into Sarah's arms. Emma watched, her own eyes brimming with tears, feeling a sweet pang of her own memories. "What about Emma?" Lily suddenly asked, turning to the waitress. "Will you stay with me too?" Emma exchanged a touched look with Sarah before answering. "I'll always be around, Lily, I promise." Word spread quickly through the restaurant. Jack emerged from the kitchen with a tray of celebratory cupcakes. Other staff gathered around, offering congratulations and pledging their support. Later, as Sarah filled out the initial paperwork to begin the adoption process, Emma sat beside her, offering advice and emotional support. "It's going to be quite a journey," Emma murmured, "but you both deserve this. And we'll all be here to help." Sarah lifted her eyes from the forms, a weary yet joyful smile on her face. "Thank you, Emma, for everything. None of this would have happened without you." The two women exchanged a look of profound understanding. The Cozy Corner had become more than a restaurant. It was the start of a family, a community built on compassion and hope. As the sun set outside, bathing the room in a golden glow, the future appeared bright with endless possibilities. For Lily, for Sarah, for Emma, and for all the children whose lives would be touched by the miracle that began on a Christmas Eve at the Cozy Corner. The next morning, as dawn's first rays peeked over the horizon, Sarah opened the doors of the Cozy Corner. The restaurant, silent and still, seemed to hum with the possibilities of a new day. Sarah smiled, recalling how only a few weeks ago this place was just a business. Now it was the beating heart of a transformation. Lily, still sleepy, clung to Sarah's hand as they stepped inside, her eyes shining with new hope and belonging. "So," Lily asked, her tiny voice brimming with anticipation, "this is our home now." Sarah knelt, meeting the girl's gaze. Yes, sweetheart, this will be our home. And more than that, it'll be a home for many other kids who need help. The sound of footsteps heralded Emma's arrival, her face lit by a warm smile. Good morning, family, she said, and the word family carried a special weight. The three shared a hug, a quiet moment of connection before the day began. Emma already carried a stack of papers, drafts for the new community support program. I've got some ideas, she began as they headed to the kitchen for breakfast. I thought we could start with a mentoring program. Kids from the orphanage could come regularly, learn cooking skills, but also receive emotional support. Sarah agreed enthusiastically. That's brilliant. Emma, and we can expand it to include financial literacy lessons, homework help. Lily, who had been listening quietly, raised her hand shyly. I want to help too. Maybe tell the other kids what it's like to have a new family. Sarah's heart melted at Lily's request. Of course you can, my love. Your voice and experiences are so important. As they prepared breakfast together, the three continued brainstorming, their dreams and plans intertwining like the aromas filling the kitchen. Soon, other staff members arrived. Jack burst in with his usual enthusiasm, only to pause at the homely scene before him. Well, he grinned. Looks like we've got ourselves a little family here. Madeline arrived soon after, her usual businesslike demeanor softened by a genuine smile. Emma, she called, I'd like to discuss some ideas for the program. I was thinking about how we can optimize our resources for maximum impact. Emma and Sarah exchanged a grateful glance. The shift in Madeline's attitude was tangible, a testament to the transformative power of recent events. As the restaurant came to life around them, preparing for another busy day, Sarah gathered everyone for a brief meeting. As you all know, she began, a lot has changed in the past few weeks. The Cozy Corner isn't just a restaurant anymore. It's a home, a sanctuary, a place of hope. She paused, taking in each face. And that's largely due to Emma's courage in sharing her story. Emma, feeling the weight of so many eyes, took a deep breath before speaking. Growing up in an orphanage wasn't easy, she began, her voice trembling yet resolute, but it taught me the value of empathy and community. Now, we have the chance to make a real difference in other children's lives. Jack, eyes brimming with tears, was the first to speak. Emma, your strength is inspiring. Count me in for whatever the program needs. Madeline, usually so reserved, surprised everyone by standing and embracing Emma. Thank you, she whispered, for opening our eyes. The meeting became a collective brainstorming session. Ideas flowed, from educational initiatives to monthly fundraising events. Enthusiasm spread like wildfire, even among the staff who had been skeptical before. By midday, the Cozy Corner buzzed with renewed purpose. Regular customers, upon hearing the changes, offered assistance and resources. Word traveled fast through town, and soon the phone wouldn't stop ringing with offers of volunteers and donations. Emma, in her new leadership role, seemed to bloom. Her personal experiences lent an invaluable perspective to every aspect of the initiative. She spoke with a passion that energized everyone around her, her words imbued with authenticity. As dusk fell, Sarah found a quiet moment to reflect. She watched Emma interact with Lily and a few other orphanage kids who had come for a visit, her heart swelling with gratitude and hope. Amazing, isn't it? Madeline's voice startled her. The manager stood beside her, a contemplative look on her face. How one person can change everything. Sarah nodded, smiling. Emma showed us the power of vulnerability, of empathy. She turned her pain into a gift for others. They fell silent, watching the scene before them. The Cozy Corner, once just a fine dining restaurant, now pulsated with life and a shared mission. When night finally fell and the last customer departed, Sarah, Emma, and Lily gathered in the kitchen. Exhausted but elated, they sipped hot chocolate together. Let's step outside, Sarah suddenly suggested. I want to show you something. Together, they walked onto the small back balcony. The sky was starting to lighten again, the first hints of dawn painting it in pale pink and orange. "A new day," Emma murmured, voice